Hello, everyone. My name is Yusuf, and I'm a legal director at Harrington Carmichael, and I'll be going through this immigration webinar on securing a sponsor license for a business. So this is a practical guide for employers who wish to sponsor migrants from overseas. So the areas we're going to be covering today are sponsor licenses, skilled worker visas, and then application fees. So, you'll need a sponsor license if you wish to sponsor employees from overseas. These include EU nationals who have not registered with EU Settle Scheme, part of the Brexit scheme, which was introduced back in 2020, end of 2020, beginning of 2021. So the requirements are for a sponsor license that you must not have any convictions for any immigration offences or any other offences such as fraud or money laundering. You've not had a sponsor license revoked by the Home Office in the previous 12 months. If you have, you can't apply for one. You must have an active trading presence in the UK when you're applying for a sponsor license. And you must have appropriate systems in place to monitor sponsored employees. So you will need to have that in place before you apply for a sponsor license. So how does the application form entail? So you would need to submit a online form, which is a online form through the online system, the government website, which this application will need to be submitted by the authorizing officer, which is someone senior from the business, which will be selected as part of their role to basically submit the sponsor license application. When the license application is submitted, the supporting documents and certain information about the business will need to be forwarded to the Home Office within 5 working days. So this is a common pitfall which a lot of companies may miss, and they take it past the 5 days and they end up having the application rejected. So this is something you want to be mindful of, something you want to record and diarize before you submit the application, and as soon as you submit it as well. So you need to forward it within 5 working days, or else the application will be rejected by the Home Office and not be considered. What you will need to do before you submit the application, you will need to ensure that you've got the right processes in place. So are you doing the right to work checks correctly? Have you got the right process in place to be a sponsor holder? And you will need to have all of this in place, because when you do submit the application, there is a chance that the Home Office may come into your offices and do a pre-license audit. What that entails is they would want to be satisfied to see if you are able to be a sponsored holder. And they will check your process in place. They need to be satisfied that you'll be able to monitor and track employees, and that you can, have a sponsor license and look after it. So what type of licenses are available? There are so many different licenses, but the ones that we're going to be covering are the skilled worker ones and the global business mobility. For both of these, you need to have a RQF level 6 or above role. What that usually means is degree and above. It doesn't mean you have to have a degree. It just needs to be degree level or above. Okay. So if you've got a degree, it's helpful. But if the individual doesn't have a degree, it doesn't mean they can't apply. It just needs to be equivalent to a degree level or above. So the points-based system has a minimum salary requirement, and the salary requirement has gone up since July 2025, which is last year, almost a year ago, just over a year ago. The salary is increased to 41,700. So if you're applying for a sponsor license and you're going to be then going ahead and applying for a skilled worker visa, you must pay an individual 41,700, or what the going rate for the SOC code is. Now the SOC stands for Skilled Occupational Codes. Okay, this is where you have list of roles listed on the government website, and you need to allocate a correct SOC code in order to be able to sponsor an individual. You may be able to pay less than 41,700 if the following applies: if the applicant is if they can rely on the new entrant rate. So the way you rely on the new entrant rate, if the applicant's under the age of 26 at the date of the application, on a graduate visa, or a student visa switching to a skilled worker visa, then you can rely on the lower rate of at least 33,400. You can also rely on the lower salary if the role falls under the immigration salary list. This is a list where you can actually see on the government website, and any role that falls under that list, you can rely on the lower rate of 33,400. For senior or senior specialist worker, which is the global business mobility, this is where you apply for a license because you have a overseas entity and you link it to your license, and you bring individuals from overseas to the UK office to work for you. The minimum salary for that is 52,500, or what the going rate for the SOC code is, whichever is higher. So, sponsor license management. Okay, we can assist as a law firm here. We can assist with the management of your sponsor license in the following ways. We can be added as a level 1 user on your license and as legal representatives. We can submit SMS reports on behalf of your employees who are sponsored to remain compliant and to follow all the Home Office guidance. We can help to apply for certificate sponsorships on behalf of your employees to ensure that the correct certificate is being actually applied for. Whether they're applying from overseas, a defined certificate of sponsorship is required. If they're applying from the UK, an undefined certificate of sponsorship is required. This is crucial because you want to ensure the correct certificate of sponsorship is being applied for, and you'll be able to, we'll be able to allocate the right SOC code to make sure the right salary is selected and the going rate, everything works out in order to be compliant and to submit the skilled worker visa to get that granted. We can also advise on changes to your business structure. For example, if the change of ownership takes place, if you're looking to, if the business ends up being sold, or you're linking entities, so we can basically assist with that in order to report it, or if a new license is required because your ownership has changed, we'll be able to advise on that, as well as ensuring continuity and compliance with all your sponsor duties. So, a skilled worker allows a migrant to work in the UK, and there are 4 eligibility requirements. You need to have a certificate of sponsorship from a Home Office approval employer. So when you have a sponsor license, you become a Home Office approved employer. You need to perform a highly skilled job, which is included on the list of eligible occupational codes. So you need to select a SOC code that is OCUF level 6 and above in order to be able to sponsor that individual. You will also need to be paid a minimum salary depending on the type of work you were doing. So the 41,700 or the going rate for the SOC code, unless the applicant qualifies for a discount under the new entrant rate, or if it falls under the immigration salary list. You also need to have sufficient English language knowledge. So recently that's gone up to B2, and it will be assessed on 4 different areas: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So you need to score a B2 in each of these areas in order to qualify. And the way you meet the English language requirement is through a test, if you're a national of a majority speaking English country, or if you've had a degree taught in English. So the minimum salary for a skilled worker, okay, as discussed previously, is 41,700, or the going rate for the occupation, which is listed under the appendix skilled occupations. A skilled worker qualifies for lower salary at various rates if the following applies. And like we discussed previously, if it's under the new entrant rate, the applicant is under the age of 26, which is one of the options. It's a graduate, or is in professional training. You can also score points if the applicant has a PhD in a relevant subject. The applicant has a PhD in a STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math subject. The applicant has a PhD in science or higher education, or the role is listed under the immigration salary list, so you can get a discount in all those areas. So, immigration fees with these applications. So, the first sponsor license application, you'll be paying a government fee of £611 for smaller sponsors. Or if you're a medium to large business, then you'll be paying the £1,682. How you determine whether you're a small company or a medium to large is based on Companies House definition. So small sponsors usually qualify if at least two of the following apply. Your annual turnover is 15 million or less. Your total assets are less than 7.5 million or less. Or you have 50 employees or fewer. So if any of these two apply, you can qualify for the smaller sponsor. So you pay the discounted rate, which is £611 instead of the 1,682. The application process takes around 8 weeks, unless you're willing to pay the priority fee of £750 in order to reduce this down to 10 days. So if you pay that, your basically application is in front of the queue and a decision is normally made within 10 working days. Sometimes the Home Office may request for further information at that stage, or they may go ahead and come into your offices to do a pre-license audit to satisfy themselves. But in most situations, if you've submitted the application correctly with the right documentation, with the right information in place, then it should be granted in the first go without requesting further information. But if you're a small business or you're starting new, then they may conduct these checks because they want to be satisfied whether you'll be able to maintain your sponsor duties and if you're able to have a sponsor license and follow the rules. So our immigration team here at Harrington Carmichael will be able to update you on the ever-changing immigration laws. We keep track of that. We let our clients know as soon as we're able to understand what's happening, keep you up to date with that, as well as we can help your business with applying for a sponsor license, assisting with subsequent skilled worker visa applications. Sponsor license compliance and training. We'll be able to provide you with training. We'll be able to get you ready for a audit, or make sure we'll check your systems to make sure you have the right systems in place. So if the Home Office were to visit you, you'll be able to show them that you've got all the correct processes in place and you're confident that you'll be able to maintain your sponsor duties once you've got a sponsor license. We'll be able to also advise you on temporary routes in the UK and how you may be able to bring somebody in the UK through other routes, and whether it's under a business visitor visa, if they're coming to conduct business activities, or if they qualify in any other way, instead of applying for skilled worker visas. We also advise on right to work compliance. So we will advise and check your files. We'll be able to provide trainings to your teams to make sure the correct right to work checks are being made and you've got the correct processes in place. So when you come to apply for a sponsor license, you have nothing to worry about if there's an audit, if there's any checks being made on you. So yeah, these are my details. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them through the chat. If there's any questions and if you want me to go through any of the slides, I'm very happy to go back and explain a little bit more about the different slides and different processes if you wish to know more. But yeah, feel free to put some questions through the chat and I'll be able to answer them for you. So we've got a question here where someone's asked, they applied for a sponsor license about a week ago. How long does it take to be approved? So normally the processing time is about 8 weeks from the date you forward it. So not the date you submit the application form, is the date you forward all the information and documents to the Home Office. That takes up to 8 weeks if you went for the standard service. If you paid for the 750 to prioritize it, then you should get a decision within 10 days. If you've received a notification that they're doing further checks, or it's a complex application and they need to take their time, then you'd have usually received an email. The email would have been the email that you actually put on the license application. So if you've not received anything and it's been longer than 8 weeks, then you'll definitely need to wait to see if you receive anything. And if you haven't received anything, then just depending on the timelines, if it's past 8 weeks, then you should receive something shortly. So I've got another question which someone's asked, what is the process to take an employee on a visa from another company? Does the employee need to leave the country? No, the employee does not need to leave the country. If they've got a valid visa currently working for another sponsor, you will need an undefined certificate of sponsorship. So, in order to transfer them to your employment, you need to ensure that you've got a sponsor license. If you have a sponsor license, you need to make sure you've got a certificate of sponsorship. If you do have a certificate of sponsorship, then you need to do a change of employment application. You will need to draft and assign a certificate of sponsorship, and a leave to remain skilled worker visa application will need to be made from the UK, provided they currently have a visa and that visa is valid. That visa is valid and they're currently working for another sponsor. So that's how you transfer them. And yeah, they don't need to leave the UK. They can apply from within the UK. There's another question. Thank you. So the 8 weeks notified if the sponsor has been accepted. So if you've submitted it within 8 weeks, you should receive a decision within 8 weeks, unless you've received further communication from the Home Office. I'm just going to slightly get up because the light's gone off here. Yeah. So it needs to be, a decision is normally made within 8 weeks with standard service. If 8 weeks have passed and you haven't received anything, then please be patient. Hopefully you receive something. If you haven't received anything past 8 weeks, then it may be worth getting in touch with the Home Office. Good question. So who's responsible for paying for the health surcharge fees? Can the cost be passed to the employees? Yes. So the only fees that can't be passed to the employees are the immigration skills charge and the cost fee. I will go back to the slide. Yeah, so this is the slide. I may have missed that slide. Apologies. So these are the skilled worker fees. So you've got the cost government fee, okay, the 525. Okay, so this is the fee which it can't be passed to the employee, so the business must pay for this. Okay, and then you've got the immigration skills charge. Okay, so this is the fee that can also not be passed to the employee. So the business have to pay the first two, the cost fee of 525 and the immigration skills charge. The application fee, whether you're applying from the UK or outside the UK, including the health surcharge and the priority service fee, these can all be passed to the employee. Okay, so in short, the only two fees that cannot be passed to the employee is the 525 cost fee and the immigration skills charge. If you're hiring a lawyer, if you're going to instruct a lawyer, then the legal fees for the lawyer can also not be charged to the employee. Everything else, including the visa application fee, the health surcharge, priority fee, any appointment fee, if they go to biometric appointments fee, then can be passed to the employee. So the government fees are 525 for the certificate of sponsorship. The immigration skills charge is £480 per year for small businesses, 1,320 for medium to large businesses, and this is all per year. The skilled worker application visa application fee, if you're applying from overseas, the fee is £819 for up to 3-year visa, and it is £1,618 for more than 3-year visa, so up to 5-year visa. If you're applying from within the UK, the application fee is £943 for a 3-year visa, £1,965 for more than a 3-year visa. The NHS surcharge is £1,035 per year. If you're under the age of 18, then it is £776 per year. Priority fee for the visa application is £500 and you get a decision within 5 days. And the super priority fee is £1,000. You get a decision the next day. If you don't pay for priority fee, it's up to 8 weeks. So there is more questions. Does the £33,000 apply for every sponsored role my clients care home? So with care homes, different fees will apply. You don't need to pay the £33,000 depending on when they applied. You might be able to qualify for the lower salary because under the healthcare, the lower salary fees will apply. So if you need further information from that in relation to that, you will need to get some advice and you will need to share documents in terms of when they apply for their first visa, how long have they been working in the UK, and which SOC code it applies under. So then you qualify for the lesser salary. I'll be able to help with that if you want to get in touch with me, please do. There is another question in relation to what fees if families. Today, all the fees and visas now. What about the fees? So with families, you don't need to pay this yourself as a business. You can get the applicant to pay for this. It just depends as a business how you operate. You can request the applicant to pay. Basically, in short, you don't have to pay any of their family members' dependents fees for the visa application. But if you wish to do, of course, you can. But yeah, there is no obligation for you to pay that legally. Any more questions? Please feel free to type them. We've got time. So, can I transfer a candidate with a marketing SOC code acquired on this date? Um, Depends if the SOC code falls under RQF level 6 or not. If it falls under RQF if it falls under below RQF level 6, then depending on if the role falls under the temporary shortage list, if it does, then you may be able to apply for that, but they can't bring dependents. If they applied for the visa prior to 22nd of July 2025, then you may also be able to extend their visa or switch them to your business and rely on a lower RQF level role than 6. So it is possible, but assessment needs to be made. So yeah, again, I can help with this, provided I will need to know details about the applicant. I will need to see a job description. If we can basically select a SOC code which falls under the temporary shortage list, which are SOC codes less than RQF level 6, so 3 to 5, for example. So you may be able to select a SOC code under that and still apply for a skilled worker visa, or depends on when they first applied. So another question is that someone's asked is how long does a course take to be approved? So there are two different allocations. So if you're applying for somebody who is applying from overseas, a defined certificate of sponsorship needs to be submitted on the sponsor license. So normally within 24 to 48 hours, the Home Office will either say granted, or they'll say they're considering it, or they request for further information, which you need to provide by a certain time. If there's an in-country course allocation, so this is basically on your license summary. If you go all the way down to the bottom, it will show how many certificates you have. If you've got 0, then you need to make an in-country course application, which is called an undefined course. You need to increase it through the SMS by applying for one. You need to provide as much as reasoning as possible in that box to basically confirm why you need that certificate of sponsorship. And then you need to submit it. It can take up to 18 weeks for that course to be considered and granted or request further information unless you apply for priority service. So how the priority service works is you send an email, you complete the priority form, you put the information of the sponsor on that priority form, and then you send it to the Home Office at 7 a.m. every morning. So currently there are 100 allocations in the UK per day. So when you submit it, within minutes, I mean within seconds, these priority slots get taken. So you need to be very quick, and it is 7 in the morning, believe it or not. The best advice I can give you is maybe send it at 6:59, 30 seconds, and hope to get a slot. If you do get a slot, you need to pay 350 within a certain amount of time. They will let you know in the email, and then the cause will get considered within 5 working days. Hopefully that's answered your questions. Um, how long does a license application take for the first time? So a license application should still take within 8 weeks unless you pay for priority. The only time it can take a little bit longer if you've had communication from the Home Office saying it's a complex application or they need further information. So you need to check your emails and make sure you've given the correct email address and you've received the correspondence. But normally 8 weeks, within 8 weeks, unless you've paid for priority, they should really stick to that timeline unless they send you some sort of correspondence to say it's complex or they need further information. Any more questions? I'll give it a few more minutes if anyone else wants to ask any more questions. We still have time. Thank you. Like I said, if anyone has any questions, you feel free to still type your questions. All my details are here. You can add me, send me an email, call me, and I'll be able to help and answer any of your questions, and see how we can move forward with any of your queries. I've got another question here. So how do we pay for priority service separately to the COS application and the immigration health surcharge? So it depends what you mean by priority service. If you mean priority service in order to increase your COS allocation for the sponsor license, that's separate. So you make the COS increase on the SMS, which is the sponsor management system. So you apply for one, you increase it, you submit it, you provide all the information, you submit it. Then separately, you go and fill in a priority form, which is available on the government website. You fill in the details, you attach it into an email, you send it to the Home Office every morning at 7 a.m. or just before 7 a.m. 6:59, 30 seconds is usually the exact time and gives you the best chance of getting one. You submit it every morning. If you get a slot, you'll be sent an email. If you don't get a slot, you have to try every morning. If your question relates to the other matter, so with the visa application, once you've got the cause, then when you go and submit the skilled worker visa application, you have the option of standard service, which the fee for an in-country application is 943, or you'll be able to see the priority service, which additional £500 will be added, or the super priority. So at that point, you'll be able to pay for the priority fee. So when you're submitting the visa application, you pay for the health surcharge first, and then the visa application fee, which includes the priority and super priority. I hope that's answered your question. There is another question here. Can I still employ a candidate whilst waiting for the Home Office to approve a change of circumstance to add a new store or branch to the candidate to be working at? Good question. So just all depends on, I would prefer to wait until the approval comes through. Okay, it's a gray area. I would normally wait. However, you can potentially, as long as you've submitted the change of circumstance, you forward all the information, it's still quite risky. I mean, the best advice will be to wait for that approval to go through. But then again, these can take up to 18 weeks, a long time. So you may want to check to see how the branches. It all depends on how the branch is basically linked to the company. If it's a direct branch of the company, then occasionally it may be okay to actually, as soon as you've submitted the change of circumstances and forwarded all the evidence to the Home Office, it might be okay for the sponsored worker to work there. But I will need to check that depending on the circumstances. But my best advice will be, the safest advice would be to wait for the Home Office to update their records, confirm that before going ahead and having that candidate to work in that branch. Are there any more questions? You're very welcome. I hope this has been helpful. Like I said, if you can't think of any questions right now, feel free to come back to me, and I'll be very happy to help. You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm glad this has been helpful. Yeah, have a nice day, and hopefully, if you need any help, please feel free to come back to me. Thank you again.